You are what you think. So you start the day off as this grateful creature, this grateful soul, this grateful person. You start your day off as grateful, and it just spirals throughout your day, and it puts you in a great mood. Try it.
I truly believe that thoughts are the greatest vehicle to change, power, and success in the world. Everything begins with thoughts.
Who is renting space in your mind? Who are you giving your thought life access to? I mean, why in the world would we be talking about what we might be thinking about? Because nobody really realizes this, but the mind is the battleground. You know, whatever you think about in abundance is most likely what you're going to see in your life. And there are all types of things battling for your thoughts. Because as a man thinketh, then in his heart so is he. The progression is affect your thinking first, and then get it in your heart, and then you become that. And I'll start it off with your thinking. You're in fear. Well, what you're thinking about. You're angry. Then what you're thinking about. You're depressed. Well, what you're thinking about. Peace or worry can be a result of what you've been thinking about, what you've been giving your attention to, what you've been considering.
It's hard to defend yourself when the murmuring of the voice of accusation is stronger on the inside than the voice of all the critics on the outside. Guilt is not just about what others are saying about you. It is what you are saying about yourself. It is the condemnation that comes upon you. It is the struggle that lives down inside of you that you say, what was I thinking? Have you ever looked back at something and you just wonder, what was I on to do that? What happened? Did somebody put something in my coat? What happened that I went that far? See, this is one of the things that we do with guilt because it is such a heavy burden to carry. It's a heavy burden because it can only exist in places where you care. So it becomes a heavy burden to carry. So what we do is we change the narrative of what happened to make the memory more palatable. We block out the parts we are ashamed of, and we remember how people responded to us without remembering how we elicited or initiated the response. Selective amnesia. And so this story that we tell ourselves about what happened causes a certain toxicity to the soul that stops us from getting what God would give us, because God will only fall on truth. And you have told yourself a lie so long that you can't be delivered because you can't admit the truth.
It's time for us to move. So get your joy, get your smile, and pack your bags, because we're leaving depression. We're leaving the fear. We're leaving sadness and the questions, and we're stepping into the fullness of who we were called to be.
What happened earlier this week? And it only took 15 minutes, but you can't get it out of your thought life, and it's shaping you. It's messing up your access to wisdom, and it's hindering your happiness and your joy, and you can't live the life that God wants you to live because you're occupied with the last thing that you've been thinking about, and it's become abundant in your mindset. And your mindset determines really where you're going to go. And you got to be careful, and it's a real thin line between what you're going through emotionally and what's happening spiritually. Sometimes you're thinking something wrong between you and God, and it's just an emotional mindset that's been created by how much attention you've given a thing. You're still making progress, but you might not feel like it because you've given attention to that other thing. You still heal, but you might not feel like it because you've given too much attention to the negative part of it.
The one way to coach your mind from depression is with gratitude. Just start writing down everything you have to be grateful for. Whatever it is. Your health, you can walk, you have a car, may not be the one you want. I ate today, I have a place to live, I got a friend that I can call and share my troubles with. And just be real detailed with it. You would be stunned how long you'll be writing. Now let me tell you what happens. Gratitude erases all negativity because there's no room now for negativity. It's not a magic trick. Joy and depression cannot reside in the same space. Those two things cannot exist at the same time.
Say thank you for grace. Thank you for mercy. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for parents. Thank you for wisdom. Thank you for kindness. Thank you for humility. Thank you for peace. Say thank you in advance for what's already yours. True desire in the heart for anything good is God's proof to you to indicate that it's yours already.
Praise makes you strong. Praise keeps you moving forward. So often we think, I'll give God praise after the problem turns around. I'll thank God after business picks up, after I see the solution. No, if you don't learn this principle to thank God in advance, you won't have the strength you need to wait for the promise. What keeps us strong is getting up in the morning saying, thank you that my dreams are coming to pass. Thank you that this problem's turning around. Thank you that you're bigger than this obstacle.
One of the great things about giving is that as you give, you're going to receive. What we want to do is keep the flow going. If anybody gets the bucket of love and stops and holds it there, all of us suffer. They've short-circuited the flow. They've stopped what was going on, the energy that was going around. See, you are part of an equation, and you are needed. Part of why we should begin to look at how we give up our lives is that we got to begin to see what is it that I'm supposed to do? What is my life work? And then give ourselves to that. Because as we do that, ladies and gentlemen, I guarantee you, as you begin to take on this new era that we're in, if you decide that I'm going to begin to start living life generously, I'm going to start giving more of myself, I'm going to start putting out more, contributing more to life, here's what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. I guarantee you that life will take on a whole new meaning for you. I guarantee you that as you begin to give more of yourself in your work, give more of yourself in your marriage, give more of yourself in your relationships with your families and friends, give more of yourself to your talent, to your vocation, to your job or your business. As you begin to set high standards for giving that which you have been given to share in the universe, I guarantee you that life takes on a whole new dimension.
Life is worthwhile if you learn. You gotta know, you gotta have the information. Get the information while you're here, right? There's nothing worse than being stupid. So jot this down now, as I used in my notes. What you don't know will hurt you. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is tragedy. Ignorance is illness. Ignorance is devastation. Ignorance is going broke. Ignorance creates a poor life. So you gotta know, you gotta have the information. Number one, learn from your personal experience. One way to learn to do it right is first mess it up and do it wrong. That doesn't mean it's the end of your life, but just, clean up the mess, now do it right. From a negative experience, sometimes we learn to do the positive things that saves our life and makes us successful. They say, if you survive your first heart attack, you may now live to be a very old person. Why is that? That first heart attack was a wake-up call. And then maybe the doctor said, another one of these and your history. And you say, wow. And you make it for the health food store. and you start reading every book you can read on health and nutrition, and you start doing the push-ups, and you start jogging on the beach and doing all the stuff. And all of that change now could very well help you to live a long, long life, having been alerted in an alarm system that serves you well. So learn from your negative as well as your positive experiences. Here's the next, learn from other people's experiences. That's how you get smarter in a shorter period of time. Somebody that's been through it for 5 years and they wrote a book, and the book, if you read it, could save you 5 years, cost $30. You can't miss that kind of education. Best to get the information before. Yes, we can recover. Yes, we can come back, from the grave, practically. Yes, we can come back from bankruptcy and disaster and poor health. But wow, if we had the information up front that would save us some of those years of disaster, how much better that would be. So learn from other people's experiences, both negative and positive. If a guy's messed up his life for 40 years, you just have to say, John, would you spend a day with me? And I'll bring my notebook and take good notes. Good-looking guy like you, beautiful family, every reason to do well, and you threw it all away. Teach me for a day how you messed it all up. And you just take good notes so that the same thing doesn't happen to you. So learn from your experience, learn from other people's experiences. If you learn, life is worthwhile. Here's the second if. If you try, you gotta now try something from what you've learned. We've talked about that now earlier. Take action. You never know. My father said you never know until you try. Giving speeches and doing talks. Age 25, I stand up to give my first little training. My mind sat back down. I open my mouth and nothing comes out. My knees are knocking like this. The sweat is pouring. It's called terror, in case you haven't tried it, right? But I got through it somehow. It was so bad, if I hadn't have been doing the class, I'd have gone home, right? It was bad, but I got through it. And then I did it again. I didn't know if I should even try again. But sure enough, I had the kind of mentor and the kind of teacher who said, hey, that's nothing. What if you go up to bat and you strike out? Does that mean it's over? I said, no, it's not over. It's just over for one time up at bat. And then another time and another time. Pretty soon you connect. And pretty soon you get good enough to do well. And then pretty soon you get good enough to win the game. And then pretty soon you get good enough to take home the trophy. So you just keep trying. The third if that makes life worthwhile is if you stay. You've got to hang in there. Some people plant in the spring and leave in the summer. When it gets a little hot and a little uncomfortable, and it looks like the weeds are winning, and it looks like the bugs are having a feast, and you have a tendency to say, hey, I've had it with this. But the key is, if you want the harvest in the fall at harvest time, you've got to stay through the summer. Even if the harvest doesn't turn out to be good, you just see it through, and then use that experience to do better planting in the spring come the next turnaround of seasons. So stay in there. If you're going to play the game, you got to stay until it's over. What if you were on the team and you guys were behind and you said, hey, we're so far behind, we're out of here. And you all walked off the court, right? We would run you out of town, probably. We wouldn't own you as the home team. Say, I'm behind, so I'm out of here. No, you stay until what? It's over. We're not talking about a lifetime now. We're just talking about this game. If you're in it, stay till it's over. If you sign up for the game, you don't have to go to every game. But the one you sign up, you stay, right? You don't have to do everything every time, but when you start it, see it through. See the seasons through. Then you don't have to plant anymore if you don't want to. But when you do sign up, go the distance. Life is worthwhile if you stay. Hang in there. Next, life is worthwhile if you care. And for my little talk for the service clubs, here's how I wound it up. If you care at all, you'll get some results. If you care enough, you can get extraordinary results. If you just care at all, you'll get some. But if you really cultivate your caring character and care enough, you can have such extraordinary returns from productivity activity, things you're doing underway. Have something good to say. Here's the next one. Now we must learn to say it well. Once you've got something, now you can't mumble, right? It's got to be clear, or no matter how good the message is that you've got to deliver, how good the instructions, how good the ideas, no matter how good they are, if you don't deliver them well, now the power is lost and the opportunity is lost. So number one is to have something good to say, and number two is to say it well. Here's what'll help you to say it well. Make this list. Number one, sincerity. If a message is delivered with sincerity, see, that makes all the difference. If the speaker is sincere, if the father is sincere, if the mother is sincere, see, that's captivating for the children. If the friend is sincere, even covering a delicate subject for us of some changes we probably should make, if they're sincere, see, we will give them room. Perhaps to get on our case if we know they're sincere, not just trying to criticize for criticizing's sake. If your sincerity, I'm telling you, that wins the day. Here's what can really be accomplished. Hopefully, like this weekend here, someone sincerely willing to speak and someone sincerely willing to listen. Now, in terms of lecture, book, seminar, and all the rest, we must come to this conclusion, because it's a wise conclusion, that sincerity is not a test of truth. In your study and evaluating everything, just make sure you have that in the back of your mind. Sincerity is not a test of truth. We must not make the mistake of saying, he must be right. He's so sincere. See, that might be a mistake. Why is that? Here's why. It's possible to be sincerely wrong. So sincerity is not a test of truth. Here's the only test of truth. Truth. Truth is the only test of truth, not sincerity. We hope someone will be both truthful and sincere, but we don't mistake sincerity for truth. Here's next. Repetition. To get better at something, you just have to go do it. Go do it. Accept every opportunity to go make a little talk if that's going to be your business. Get better at talking to your kids. Come up with more illustrations. Come up with more ideas. Read an extra book. How to communicate with teenagers. So you'll have something a little better to say. And then just practice it. Get good at it. Get better at it. Right? I was clumsy when I started. Now the words flow a little easier. I still struggle with the language, trying to make it clear, but it's easier now. Repetition has helped me to do that. Here's what's next. In good communication, saying it well, brevity. Right? Don't take too long to say it if you can say it in shorter sentences and shorter time. One way to learn brevity is to talk to kids. You talk to kids for 30 seconds and they say, how long is this gonna take? It's already too long, right? 30 seconds. I mean, they got games to play and things to do. They can't hang around for, an hour's discourse. So talk to kids. It helps you to make it more brief. The storyteller tells us Jesus wandered around the countryside in putting his 12 together. And as he wandered around the countryside, every once in a while he would say, you follow me. See, that's short. Why could he be so brief and so short with that simple appeal? Jot this down now. Probably for who he was, not just for what he said, but for who he was. There was something about him when he said, you follow me. See, probably his reputation, probably his manner, probably with how he said it, irresistible. So here's what's powerful, and you can talk less and even be more effective in this personal development area. The stronger you become and the wiser you become, the more caring you become, it shows in your language and your manner. The texture of your communication changes and reaches where it couldn't reach before. It strikes the heart where it didn't strike before. That's the key here. Next, style. Now you've got to develop your own style. You can be a student of style. There's about a dozen people that I know over the years that if you knew those dozen, you'd say, hey, a little bit of each of them appears in Jim Rohn's style, which is probably true. Not copying any one person, but I like the way the person said it this way. I like the person's gestures, because I used to be a little too stiff without, gestures. So make this note, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Style, sincerity, the way you present it, heart, soul, from deep inside, commitment, dedication, wrapped up in your language so that now when you present it, hey, it becomes incredibly effective. Next is vocabulary. The better your vocabulary, the better you can share ideas that are meaningful, find words now to use that you couldn't use before. If you were very limited in your ability to comprehend because you had such a small vocabulary, that no matter what someone said, it would still be confusing. No matter what they said, it still might not make sense. They said it clear, but you couldn't see it. And sometimes that's because the vocabulary is so limited that it doesn't have the ability to register the scene on the screen of your consciousness. What if you could only see the world through this little tiny hole? You would be inclined to say, the world is like this. And all of us would say, no, the world is like this. This person would say, no, it's like this. How come they keep insisting the world is like this? Because that's all they can see. They're limited in the scope of their ability to widen their perception about life and what's going on and what's happening simply because they don't have the vocabulary to understand. So they started working on vocabulary, and immediately behavior started to change. Being able to see, being able to comprehend. Oh, now I see. Oh, now I understand the reason why. And as your education increases, that should be one of the major purposes for education, is to help you see things you couldn't see before. Comprehend what you couldn't comprehend before. See a future you couldn't see before. See beyond tomorrow you couldn't see before. See, that's a gift. Vocabulary. So keep working on your vocabulary. Now here's another reason. Only with our present vocabulary can we express what's going on in our head, what's going on in our heart. You can't express beyond your present vocabulary. What if it's very limited? Then your ability to express what you think, express how you feel, is limited. So by a very restricted vocabulary, if you can't understand very well, and if you can't express very well, then your world becomes very, very small. So jot this down. Make one of the books a very important book, and that is the dictionary. A word you don't understand, come to a word you don't understand, you look it up. Say, what is this word? Words are like lights. Now make this note now, especially the English language. There's nothing richer than the English language because there's so many ways to say it in English. In some languages, there's only one way to say it. In English, there's another way to say it, and another way to say it, and another way to say it. When I travel to all these countries and have to have translators, it gets to be difficult sometimes. Expressing something that makes sense in English because we have several ways to say it, but in their language, there's only a couple of ways to say it. So the translator has a tough job. So you have to learn how to present, how to do the stuff. But the gift of language is so powerful, it's worth the exercise. It's worth the effort. Vocabulary, brevity, style, repetition, sincerity, saying it well. Here's another one on saying it well. Don't fail to say it. You need the practice. Practice everywhere. If you're going to give someone a gift and send a little card, practice making this little card something they'll keep and remember for the rest of their lives. Not ordinary, extraordinary. Not like everyone else, different than everyone else. It's the practice of using your gift of saying things another way until a light turns on, another way that expresses something heartfelt that the standard ordinary language wouldn't express, couldn't reach, couldn't paint these mental pictures. It's okay to give flowers, but don't let flowers do all your talking. Flowers have a limited vocabulary. Guess what flowers say? You remembered. That's about all they say. Flowers don't say, nobody in this world affects me like you do. Love. See, flowers talk, but they don't say that. That you got to put in the little card. Nobody in this world affects me like you do. Love, and then you sign it. And see, long after the flowers are gone, somebody's going to keep the words. The words are more powerful than the flowers. So don't let flowers do all your talking. See if you can't choose the words that are meaningful, words that are unique. And the more you do this, practicing every little occasion to say something well, whether it's a little talk to the family gathering, or whether it's training, or whether it's inspiring, or a little class on Sunday morning. Whatever it is, keep improving, find a new way to say it, a new illustration, a new story. You'll get better. The gift will belong to you, and the effect could be electrifying. Don't fail to say it. Here's an expression we've heard. Words are no substitute for action. That's true. Let me give you another one. Action is no substitute for words. It's okay to do, but you've also got to say. Express it, as clumsy as it might be to start. Start a better program of better communication, saying it better. Here's the next one now that's really challenging, but it really works, and that is read your audience. Whether it's an audience of a child or an audience of a training class, or whether you're a minister and you preach, here's what you've got to do. Say something well, but then read the effect you're having. If you're talking to a child, should you really pour it on, or should you hesitate? Should you save this for another time or do it now? Some of that you've got to pick up by reading the child. Read what's happening to your audience of 1 or 1,000. This is a challenge, but it'll help you in framing better the words you need to say and the style you need to use. Now, in reading, there's 3 things. Jot these down. 3 things in reading your audience. First, you read what you see. Salespeople soon learn. If the customer's got his arms folded and his chin tucked down and he's frowning, this one ain't gonna be easy. Right, this one's gonna take all my skill to get his arms unfolded, make him a little more comfortable, get that frown off of his face. What can I do? I got to reach in my bag for some good stuff, right? To see if I can't sort of change the situation. And what causes us now to do those amendments in our presentation? It's reading someone's body language, right? What's happening? Here's the next one. You've got to read what you hear. If it's a two-way conversation, you got to listen as well as talk. Mama said 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk, at least, maybe more. Listen so that you can now know how to proceed, especially if you're talking to a child. You listen so that you know how to proceed, and by listening, you pick that up. Here's the next one. You got to pick up the emotional signals, how you feel, whether you're coming on too strong, whether you should be stronger or easier this time. That's an art in reading. First, what you see. Second, what you hear. Third, read how you feel. Now, this is where women really have it made, being able to feel, sense. And they pick it up. Men can learn better on how to pick up these emotional signals, but women seem to have it. Because there's no use going on and on if the signal should have told you, wow, this is not the time. This is too strong. Picking up not only what you see and what you hear, but what you feel. Now, here's the last one. To achieve good communication, something good to say, saying it well, reading your audience. Here's the last one. Intensity. Intensity is the emotional part of communication. Communication is both words and emotion. Here's what's really powerful. Words loaded with emotion. See, that's what's unbelievably powerful. It can move nations. It can help people change directions. It can establish an ideology, for good or for bad. Look at Hitler and his ability to preach. Look at Stalin and his ability to preach. Lenin, as wrong as they were, they believed it with all of their heart. Disastrous results. But they put everything they had into it. The emotional content was unbelievable, powerful. Yes, in an evil direction, but it can also be used for a good direction. This intensity, strength, power, emotion. Now here's the craft, and conversation is a craft. Don't get lazy in learning this craft, because it'll serve you so well at home, it'll serve you so well in the marketplace, it'll serve you so well in your career and making your fortune. This craft of communication. Here's the combination. Well-chosen words mixed with measured emotion. Not only do the words have to be well-chosen, the emotion has to be well-measured.
How bad do you want it? The dreams God has placed in your heart are not going to come to pass without opposition, without delays, without people trying to talk you out of it. There will be plenty of opportunities to get discouraged, to lose your passion, and think that it's not meant to be. But if you're going to reach your destiny, you have to have a made-up mind. If you give up after the first time, or the 5th time, or the 30th time, what that really means is you didn't want it bad enough. There should be something you're believing for that you are relentless. You are not moved by how impossible it looks. You don't give up because people told you no. Your attitude is, if I have to believe my whole life, I am not going to stop believing. I am not going to take no for an answer. I'm not going to settle for mediocrity. I'm going to keep pursuing what God put in my heart. You can't be passive and indifferent. You have to have a holy determination. It's more than just your will. It's a fire on the inside, a knowing that it's supposed to be yours. When everything says it's not going to happen, instead of getting discouraged, you kick in to a new gear. Normal people would give up. Normal people would settle, but you're not normal. You want it on another level.
There are a whole lot of people, they want to be inspired in great things, but they don't want to do the hard work to achieve those great things. It's not either or, it's both and. So I really trust today that you will just kind of roll up your sleeves, look at something you haven't tackled for a while, dive in. You'll be amazed that once after you do the work, you get inspired. Don't wait to get inspired before you do the work.
I'm telling you, put more time and effort in getting your freedom than being entertained. That's what I'm telling you. Like, come on. Like, look, you know, the people that you watch put in work. The people that you go see put in work. They were working on Christmas while you were unwrapping gifts. They were putting in time in the gym while you were hanging out. They were putting in time in the office while you had to leave early. They put in work, man. You want to get great and you don't want to put in work?
Come up with a good plan. Don't come up with a perfect plan that takes you 2 weeks to come up with. That's not going to help you. Patton said a good plan, violently executed now, is better than a perfect plan executed next week. You got to pay attention and watch how it's unfolding. And don't put the blinders on and you've got your plan and now we're going to go and we're not going to look around anymore. We're just going to follow the plan. No, you have to be observant. You have to observe, orient, decide, and act the whole time. You can't just come up with a plan and stay on that track, because when you come up with a fast plan, you're not going to have thought about every single detail.
Your future is in your hands. You know what that means? You got to work on your mind. Fortify yourself. You know what that means? You got to upgrade, level up your skill set. You know what that means? That means you want to be in a community of collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships that's going in your direction. You're supposed to evolve, not be the same way. We've been trained to be who we were not to be. And as a result, most of us are living a misplaced life. And a lot of people have made the decision to give up. A lot of people have made the decision to wait for a stimulus check. They don't require much stimulation. A lot of people have made the decision that I can't make it. A lot of people have made the decision that this is too painful. This is too much. No. A lot of people have thrown in the towel. It's a new day. And it's a new day. It's got to be a new you. You got to be willing to transform yourself.
You don't put championship rings on smooth hands. You got to put in work. While everybody else is sleeping, you putting in work. While everybody else, when the cheerleaders are not cheering, when the band ain't playing, when the crowd ain't there, you putting in work. When you put in work when nobody else is around, that's when things come together. That's what gives you the advantage. That's how you overcome your obstacles. That's how you overcome everything, because you're putting in work.
Life ain't luck, man. Life is hard work. Life is faith. And life is grace.
If you give up every time things don't go your way, you didn't want it bad enough. You have to dig your heels in and say, I am in this for the long haul. I will get well. I will accomplish my dream. I will meet the right person. You're not moved by what's not working out.
The other thing is that you got to work your butt off. If you think that you're going to go and accomplish something really special and be the best in anything in the world, and you think you can do it without working, you make a big mistake. Because no matter what I did, it always took a lot of work. And you got to put out, and you got to, sometimes make a lot of sacrifices. Notice, if you're not willing to work hard, forget about it.
Every transformation always gets worse before it gets better. It's supposed to be that way. The journey you're embarking on is not an easy path. It's not for the ill-hearted or the weak-natured. It's for the strong people. And before you embark on this journey, mentally, you have to prepare yourself for it, knowing it's going to get worse before it gets better. When you embark this journey, you must know that it's going to go down before it comes up. But when it comes up, it's going to go so much higher than you've ever been. Sacrificing today for tomorrow's betterment. You have to be equipped mentally to endure this process. Knowing what you're about to go into is step one. Knowing it's an uphill battle, but a winnable one and one that's achievable.
So most people are so afraid to fail that they come up with this whole story that it's worse than it is. And of course, when you make it worse than it is, it overwhelms you, and now you won't begin.
What I want you to understand is that inspiration does a lot better when it's coupled with perspiration. You've never heard someone talk about accidental achievements. You've never heard someone that got to the top of the mountain and somebody asked them, how did you get there, kind of look confused and say, I have no idea. They know how they got there.
So, be flexible, but stick to the plan, but be ready to adjust, but stick to the plan. And that's totally contradictory, and I know that, and I apologize, but that is what leadership is. Leadership is balancing those dichotomies.
I've told people to learn to use a schedule. And people often hate schedules because they act as their own tyrants, right? They say, well, you have to do this unpleasant thing, and then here's another unpleasant thing you have to do. And you do that for about 3 days, and you think, to hell with this, I'm not doing that, and you fall off the wagon. That isn't what you're supposed to do with a schedule. You're supposed to use it to design the days that you would like to have if you were taking care of yourself. And so you got to treat yourself like a good boss would treat a valued employee, and not like a tyrant would treat a slave, because the slave will rebel. And people say, well, I don't follow through on my plans. It's like, well, A, they're probably not very well formulated, and maybe you're doing them because of an external moral obligation or something. They're not really your plans, right? And B, you're acting like a tyrant and a slave, and that's a bad relationship to have with yourself.
If you've accepted that where you are is where you're going to be, you've already lost. And there's no power in that. There's no power in that. That's like staying right here. You're not popping the clutch. You're not going forward. You've made a choice to just stay here. And that's your responsibility. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying there are not challenges, problems, obstacles, issues, fears. But when you quit right here, you're right. This is where you're going to be.
Growth is not an automatic process. If you're going to grow, you're going to have to do so intentionally. And highly successful people, they continually have a thirst for knowledge. They continually ask questions. The secret of your success is determined by your daily agenda. The secret of my success is determined by what I do today. I believe that so much that a few years ago I wrote a book called Today Matters. Basically in that book I talk about the fact that we over-exaggerate yesterday, we overestimate tomorrow, and we underestimate today.
If you do not have it written down, your chances of it happening is reduced drastically because it's a principle of success. Write the vision and make it plain so that he who reads it will run to it. And even though it tarry, wait for it, for surely it will come at an appointed time. See, my first vision board I wrote when I was 10. I didn't know it was a vision board. The lady asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up. I wrote I want to be on TV. I wrote it at 10. I kept that paper till I was 27. I read it. I flunked out of school. I'm on my third marriage. I lost everything twice. I've been living in a car for 3 years. But I kept reading my paper. Guess what? I'm TV star. I'm on TV. This is how this works. Now I wrote it at 10, but surely it will come at an appointed time. I did not get on TV till I was 38.
We got to be more determined and stronger and be willing to do whatever it takes to live our dreams and create a future for our children. You got to be stronger than the forces working against you. Can't take any breaks. No, absolutely not. This is the new way of being. This is different. And the secret is to maintain commitment through all the frustrations, through all the disappointments, through all the setbacks that we will experience, and working to bring about change. That's how change comes about. People, you're not a witness. You're a participant. You want to be actively engaged in life. Harv's man was right. We should be ashamed to die until we've made some major contribution to humankind with our voice, with our story, with our energy, with our efforts, with our intelligence, with our abilities, with our dreams.
Write everything you want on a piece of paper. Everything. I don't care. Use your wildest imagination. If you can think it, you can achieve it. Write it on a piece of paper. Read it every morning and every night. Come back here 1 year from today and see how much of that stuff then came true. That's all successful people have. If it's not written, you reduce your chances greatly of it ever occurring.
People ask me, James, why are you working as hard as you work? Because I remember being broke. You know, being broke is a great motivator to never go back there. That's why I work the way that I work. I don't have to work the way that I work, but I work that way because I remember what it was like to sit around and wonder where the money was coming from. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to wait for my boss to decide I'm not necessary anymore. Not when I got an opportunity to be free. Are you serious?
How bad do you want what God has put in your heart? Bad enough to outlast the opposition? Bad enough to overlook some insults? Bad enough to do the right thing when the wrong thing is happening? Do you want it bad enough to keep pursuing even when circumstances say it's not going to happen? Many of the difficulties we face, the delays, the times it's not fair, that's simply a test. This is what weeds people out. If you're overcome by problems, you let circumstances push you down, people talk you out of it, you're not going to have the strength or the courage to sustain where God is taking you. Don't have a weak mentality, have a warrior mentality.
Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. Keep striving, never give up, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Without commitment, you'll never start. But more importantly, without consistency, you'll never finish.
In essence, all of us at some level to feel alive have to always feel like we're growing. When people ask me, what does it take to be happy? I always tell them one word: progress. Progress equals happiness. Even if you're not where you want to be yet, if you're on the road, if you're improving, if you're making progress, you're going to love it. You're going to feel alive.
And so once you've embraced and decided that this suffering, this sacrifice you're making is an indicator of progress, it's an indicator of obsession. Suffering and sacrifice and hard work is an indication of progress towards our dreams. The lack of sacrifice, the lack of suffering in our lives, its removal, its non-existence also equates to a non-existence of a great life, a non-existence of a dream happening, a big one anyway. And so embrace the fact that you're going to have to sacrifice and suffer to some extent. Once you've embraced that it's going to happen, it's almost not that bad. It's kind of like those of you that are fit. We already know, and you already know even if you're not, you've sort of accepted that before you go to the gym and get there, you're going to have to suffer. And we go anyway. It becomes a habit. No one goes into a gym thinking, I'm not going to have to sacrifice or suffer. There'll be no discomfort or no pain. But millions of people go anyway, don't they, to the gym? On some level, they're suffering in the gym, whether it's breathing heavy or sweating or aches or pains or stress. You know, everything in the gym is a sacrifice, and to some extent, you're suffering, going through some pain. You know it before you go, don't you? Yet most of us go all the time. Yet in life, outside of that one area, most of us are worried about suffering. We're afraid of it. When we're suffering and sacrificing, we wonder whether it's worth it. We wonder whether we're supposed to. We wonder whether sacrifice or setbacks or suffering is a sign it's not our real dream. The indication of the pain and sacrifice and sweat, don't you feel better at the gym? You're like, wow, I really sacrificed today. I really suffered. So in that area, we all know to the extent we suffer and sacrifice is to the extent we grow. And your body is a metaphor for the rest of your life. But the rest of our life, every time we sweat, every time we sacrifice, every time we suffer, we don't do what we do at the gym. We start saying, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. Maybe I'm not cut out. Maybe it's not my destiny. Maybe I just can't do it.
Make a plan. Look at what you're interested in. Get disciplined about something. Allow for the possibility that you have something important to contribute to the world, and that the world would be a lesser place without that contribution. Don't be afraid of taking on responsibility. It's where you find what sustains you in your life. You can take on too much responsibility. You have to be cautious in that regard, but that's a less common problem than not taking on enough.
Now, when it does come to planning, I think the most important part of a plan, the thing that makes a plan the most effective, is its flexibility. When you do the actual operation and you come up against unexpected things, which are absolutely going to happen, you have the flexibility, you have options, you have contingency plans to deal with.
You got to have a plan. Everybody's got a dream. Everybody's got a goal. What's the plan? And your plan has got to have something I call the C5 complex. Your plan has got to be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. You've got to have a plan. And when you're trying to do something that you're truly passionate about, there is no plan B.
A lot of the things that people regard as traps are actually the means to their life. You know, often young people are afraid of commitment, for example, in the context of a romantic relationship, and because they feel that that's going to interfere with their pursuit of something more valuable. But that's just not the case. You're not going to find something more valuable in your life than a committed relationship with someone that you love, that sustains itself across time, and that in all likelihood produces children. That's life. So don't be afraid of that, or be afraid of it, but don't let that stop you from pursuing it.
When you see transition really start to happen, when you really want to transition to something, master it. There's no limits. You know, don't let the world ever put limits on you. You can do anything you want to do, but make sure if you have a vision, make sure the vision is written. You know, make sure you have something to actually chase and not just hoping and wishing and all these different things. So put your plan together and then work the plan. Don't work somebody else's plan, right? That's one thing about the league. I love the league, but the league is somebody else's brand, right? You have to create your own brand yourself.